ask, how did it reach here? And I'll leave that topic there on the table. For all those who have a vested interest in American politics, good luck figuring out who you want to support in this. Now, with that out of the way, let's actually start off today's Daily Review. Now, top story, one of importance, seems to be a little bit of a disagreement, to say the least, between the Auditor General and the government. In fact, it has come out that both the Minister of Finance and the AG have had some serious questions to the lady. The Attorney General was questioning, I believe, her motives and intentions, because according to the Minister of Finance, and get this, the revenue for 2023, there was an error. The error is over 3 billion, of which they could only properly account for 2.6 billion. And the figures were sent to the Auditor General to correct, because they believe, sorry, not the, that's the Attorney General, the Auditor General. They were sent to her to correct, to allow for the correct presentation of TNT's financial situation to be made in the report, the audit report, of which her office is to produce. Technically, it has produced. It just seems as though the government doesn't necessarily want to accept it in the way or the manner that it was. And the Minister of Finance is questioning. He's making claims that her office did not respond to requests to put the new information in, did not respond kindly. It took a lot of finagling, and then even after there was apparently some dialogue, it was not included, I believe he is quoted as saying, in the audit of the country's financials. And he is saying, well, it was a simple error with regards to electronic check clearing platforms, blah, 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 blah. Now, the thing is, the Attorney General himself, I believe, also weighed in on this, and I want to get what his words were. Because they both made statements in Parliament, and now it somewhat questions, I guess again, it brings the question to the forefront about, you know, the capacity to say things in Parliament and have it being protected, right? But, well, I'll move on from the Attorney General. The thing about it is there, well, the Auditor General has different claims, right? Despite the fact that the AG spoke out against her and the Minister of Finance spoke out against her, with regards to the specific claims that was made, right, of a very bizarre situation arising from the fact that the Auditor General has refused in flagrant contravention to a statutory and constitutional responsibility. These are the words used, I believe, used by the AG, right? Attorney. The Auditor General is saying, well, hold on. I did use the updated financials, not necessarily in the way that you might have wanted it to be done, because she's brought up the fact that, curiously enough, the initial figures were sent to her by the statutory deadline, but then after the fact, months later, in fact, only a couple of weeks before today, I believe in the middle of April, this new update, I believe, was reportedly sent to her. And the problem she had, first of all, was the fact that it was backdated. To make it seem as though an error was made, but we're going to backdate it to the January date, not to the date it was actually presented to her. That's first of all. Making it almost seem as though someone wants to, I don't know, kind of retcon the error out of existence. Except this is a late submission. And I'm not this is me speaking now, Sean Michael Small, I'm not aware if that's even allowed for her to accept those figures, because it's after, I believe, the statutory limit. But then she goes on to say, also, remember, there's a $3.379 billion figure, not the 2.6. 780 million can't necessarily be accounted for, but that's part, I believe, of the financials, the revenue shortfall that she was sent. So basically, the government saying, oh no, revenue was even higher, and for at least a chunk of it, she has no real information on where it came from, and somehow she's supposed to audit the financials of the state with that kind of information. So she has herself sought legal advice, and I believe a legal letter was sent to the Minister of Finance to retract the statements made in Parliament. Her version of events contradicts his statements enough and the Attorney General's statements enough where, you know, we have to wait and see how this unfolds. But I myself, I do wonder, does any of this have anything to do with the fact that not too long ago the Auditor General mentioned the fact that some of the payments made of the excess revenue that was not budgeted for because we had a little bit of a windfall, it was late by a couple of months. For the most part, that's the first time in recent memory I have seen the Auditor General's office, you know, been highlighted in the public sphere at all, and now all of a sudden the Minister of Finance has an issue with her. To what extent are these things connected, or is it just coincidence? I don't know, but let's move on quickly now. This one somewhat is a little bit close to home because it is literally one of my greatest fears. I myself have a somewhat phobia of sharks in the open water, and I have done all I can with regards to myself to try to not let it become unreasonable and to enjoy the sea, basically, despite my irrational fear. Except now there was a shark attack by a bull shark reported in Tobago. Now, one of the interesting things about it is I'm not entirely sure if there's enough evidence to more or less confirm that the shark that attacked one British tourist was a bull shark. Seems somewhat likely given the nature of the attack. It happened, I believe, 10 meters away from the shoreline. Shallow water. Bull sharks are one of the species of sharks that I believe is willing to go into the shallow areas. You wouldn't necessarily, I think, see great whites do that. Also, according to marine biologists, we're within their area of travel, of their habitat, right? They range from North America all the way down to as far south as Brazil, it has been reported of seeing. Now, in this situation, TEMA has a map where it has 2 other confirmed sightings of sharks. Again, it's difficult if witnesses could properly identify. We are not accustomed to sharks, so it's not like our local fishermen, I would imagine, are experts on identifying the various species. But there were 2 confirmed sightings as well in Tobago, further south from where the attack occurred. One in Buku Bay, one in the Bonaccord Lagoon, both of them closer to the Nylon Pool, and of course not too far from Pigeon Point and a lot of the beaches where when Trinbagonians go to Tobago, Pigeon Point, Store Bay, it's basically right around the corner when you look at it from the map and on a practical level. Now, the THA had a bounty, $10,000, but the Chief Secretary here, in short, what I believe, rescinded that for good reason. I myself didn't necessarily see anything wrong with it at the time because I myself was afraid of a situation where, oh, there's a man-eater on the prowl. Now, one attack a man-eater does not make. There have been instances where wild animals, this is not widespread, but it can happen. Wild animals, usually I believe it's big cats, whether it's tigers in India or in the case made famous in one movie, the lions of Tsavo, where they get a taste for human flesh, and if the situation is, I guess, easy enough for them to get prey that way, they will turn to that. Most predators are not naturally man-eaters. So of course now, to what extent is this behavior a bad sign? It's one attack. One attack doesn't mean anything. As the biologists point out, a lot of shark attacks are exploration or investigative attacks. And actually, you get a lot of survivors from the initial attack because the sharks swim away. They don't recognize a human as prey after they bite into them and taste them. They don't necessarily have hands, right? Yes, they have eyes, but it doesn't work quite the same as how we would identify things visually out of the water. So, while on one hand the attack seems vicious, he was bitten multiple times, we don't necessarily know to what extent did this shark really want to attack this individual and see it as prey, or if it was just curious and then eventually decided to leave the unfortunate victim alone. So is there an emergency that required a bounty? Probably not. But then I was reminded of something that I knew, but I forgot in the moment. How do you identify the specific shark that carried out the attack? And this is something that more or less is a concern for biologists. Every time there's a shark attack scare that leads to shark hunters, for lack of a better term. There are cases where you would see a lot of fishermen and some people who are not necessarily, the bounty was, I believe, for registered fishermen, but sport fishermen or people with just boats, private boats, individuals who just decide, I'm going to take action on this, they go after sharks. And the fact that many of them come back with a dead shark more or less guarantees that even if you got the perpetrator in those instances, everybody else got random collateral damage, which is not good for conservation of a species, particularly a predator species. Top of the food chain, top of that predator pyramid also means that they have less numbers than their prey animals, right? Going after sharks for no real practical good reason, not a good way to do it. Also, there's the fact that, look, we're going to kind of continue fueling the fires of fear amongst the population if we play into the whole thing about, well, we have to go after them and kill them to get rid of it. For all we know, the bull shark that participated in the attack swam away. Or it could be one of the two confirmed sightings, or it could be in Tobago waters still, but not necessarily seen again. We don't know. There's no real way to know. And to some extent, even if we kill that shark, this incident could potentially happen again. It could happen very soon, or a follow-up could happen much later. There's no way to know because to some degree this is unprecedented. I appreciate the minority leader's words to basically try to calm people's fears, the minority leader, not chief secretary. But the chief secretary, to his credit also, like I said, he rescinded the bounty, which I believe was the right thing to do. Now the question is, to what extent do we have to be concerned that this could happen again? It doesn't have to be the same shark, it could be another shark, could be a different species, potentially. Should we look into things in order to treat with shark preventions? There's a whole science and set of technologies for that. Do we need to invest in that because of one potentially random attack? That is something for TEMA and for the THA and the national government on a whole to figure out, because one could argue whether it's down the islands, north coast, east coast, Tobago, and of course, yes, technically also the other coastlines of Trinidad. You know, seagoers will now have to take it less for granted that shark attacks are not a thing in TNT because it just so happened that, well, it happened. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue here on Talking Point on WESN. Show Michael Small will be right back after this.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. And for those who might be anticipating the ASP today, it is unfortunate that I have to say he won't be joining us. But I got a quick replacement, literally, very quick. Of course, my co-host, Mr. Keita Shah.
Good morning, Sean Michael Small. Why am I a replacement? You know, I should be a replacement.
Well, first of all, right, I am not the one who keeps him away from Talking Point. The door is always open, except right now when it's closed because we're live. So, but rhetorically, it's always open. Number two, the door is always open. Right, yes, so now that we got that out of the way, I actually forgot in mid-sentence what number two was. On with the daily review, and we're going to swing back to the first story because I tried to keep it a little bit less on opinion, more on just what the facts were, because I'm pretty sure with this story, I want to hear your opinion as well. Auditor General, Minister of Finance, Auditor General is basically saying to the minister, liar, liar, pants on fire, retract it now, or I'll sue you later?
Yes and no. Liar, liar, pants on fire. I haven't heard that quite some time, actually. The Auditor General, actually, I believe that the lawsuit is against the comments that were made in Parliament on the part of the Minister of Finance. Not necessarily in reflection of the $2.6 billion that has disappeared. We're very good at magic tricks in TNT, aren't we?
This is the thing, like, because she's basically calling the fact of, hold on, before we get into what you say I did or did not do, can we not lose fact to the side that you're saying that your ministry somehow misplaced $2.6 to $3.3 billion of revenue that you just forgot to tell me about?
So the thing for me is what we've seen is that, how do you classify it? The minister says it was an error, and he's made the argument that it is because of a new electronic check clearance system on the part of central bank. Now, the minister has essentially looked at 3 avenues for blame at this point. 1, it was a mistake on the part of the Auditor General because corrections over the $2.6 billion were sent out, and the individual did not include that in their report. So the minister actually did not lay the report on Friday as was expected according to the papers that were listed in Parliament. Then 2, he's also stating that how the information that he received, he said since March 25th, he was notified of this error, and that public servants, without calling names or positions, were trying to correct the error. That was since March 25th. He said up until Friday morning, just before Parliament, he was made aware of the issue. Unfortunately, at that point, still not reflective in the Auditor General's report, so he didn't late. So that's the second avenue that the minister has looked at. Well, public servants as well, they're trying to do their job. Unfortunately, they can't get through, whether it be because of the Auditor General, whatever the case may be. Then Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. Thing is, for me, the Auditor General is the final person that you account to when it comes to the report. But I'm also questioning, what about the internal auditor at the Ministry of Finance? You see, each ministry has their own auditor, and all reports are sent to the Auditor General, who verifies the reports, then collates it and creates their own report for the government to lay. That being said, what is going on inside the Ministry of Finance? You see, the thing is, it's a $2.6 billion error. This is not the change that we're talking about. This is more money that is allocated to the Ministry of Agriculture that we're referring to. It's just, it's being referred to as an error. And me personally, I'm not satisfied with the way this entire situation is being dealt with. Because I think a pre-action protocol that's on the part of the Attorney General was sent to the Auditor General, who still refused to actually accept the explanation given and include it in that report. Now, I would say on that particular instance to the Auditor General, stand your ground. If you as an accountant are of the opinion that the reason for $2.6 billion error, or how much you want to refer to it as, is not satisfactory, and should not be or could not be included in this report. The Auditor General has not come out and spoken as yet, has not given any explanation. We've gotten the explanation on the part of the Minister of Finance. That's one. But also, Mr. Ramnas has decided that you're going to take the or pre-action protocol letter was issued to the Minister of Finance to bring clarification on the statements made. So, as I said, 2.6 billion, 2.2 billion, 2.6. I'm seeing all sorts of figures being raised, whatever it is. This is
$3.37
$1 billion error. $1 billion error.
I think it's the same thing. The first thing we have to ask is not, oh my gosh, what did the Auditor General do? The first thing we have to ask is, Minister, because here's the thing, if it was a central bank issue or an electronic banking issue or whatever, at the very least, one would hope that you would have things in place to account for the issue. But it seems as though the people who compile the reports, to compile the information to give to the Auditor General, they didn't tell her about it until April. So no account was made to say, oh, but we have this issue with regards to some aspect of checking. So it makes me now wonder to what extent was the Ministry of Finance completely unaware of this revenue lack of accounting until very recently, not too long before, they tried to send, and this is the other issue, the post dated, because it's dated, I believe, January 31st or dated for January, the updated figures, when that's not when they were sent. But they want to date it as though, well, yes, we send it then, because we only discovered this error now. But, I mean, the Act says 4 months from September the 30th of each year. So I'm not entirely sure how is it that they're gonna send that with regards to get the TNT's financial position if it's for the year before. Regardless, the timing of it, I'm not entirely sure exactly what the timing of the act means, but it seems as though I believe the Auditor General is claiming, well, when I got these corrections, it might have been outside of the time that the law allows for to some extent, right? So the procedure, the process, she has questions on the process here. How could you backdate something that you didn't send me in January, but you're going to label it as though you sent it to me in January? And then I believe the Attorney General...
What is frustrating to me is that this is
he stepped into this one, and I don't know if he should have.
No, he has every right to. Remember, the Attorney General represents Trinidad and Tobago,
right.
But more specifically, he represents the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Finance sought legal advice. In this instance, because this is a Ministry of Finance issue, the most, I would think it would be the Attorney General whom the Minister of Finance would go to, because remember, this is an issue now that the government, that the cabinet is dealing with.
This is the Keith Rowley administration. You don't go to the Attorney General. You ask the Attorney General to ask one of the vaunted senior counsels to give advice.
Well, Sean, you have to understand.
That's the track record.
That's every single government. That's not just this government. That's every single government. That being said, though, it also is a reflection of efforts with digitalization, as far as I'm concerned as well. Because if the Minister of Finance is now reporting to me as a citizen that there is a new system in place at Central Bank where commercial banks were no longer required to transport physical checks to Central Bank. Rather, it was a new system between Central Bank and Inland Revenue where checks were scanned, and that there were difficulties or experiencing difficulties with the magnetic ink recognition line to verify check legitimacy, new implementation of the electronic clearance system. You see, the thing is, issues with technology will always arise. But time and time again, it's very frustrating that you're hearing that we have this issue. When was this issue actually raised? When was it resolved? At what point in time actually did we realize, hold on, we need to pause the use of this system because we're getting issues with it? Why is it that I'm constantly hearing that that there's always some trouble when it comes to our efforts to be more IT-centric?
Because to me, right, you can't use an excuse like that to say, oh, my bad, we can't actually carry out an important function of government properly. It's going to be delayed. There's going to be issues with it. It's like, no, that's not how it works. If you're going to implement something properly, right, if you're a private business and you want to do something like this, that's up to you. But if this is a private situation, most likely something like this will impact their revenue stream because it will impact their operations. But because it's public, we don't necessarily view it that way. But what we're getting is it's impacting governance production. And that is a term I'm using that I've just coined to basically encapsulate. In this case, the Auditor General has to give out a report, and it's impacting her work, aka her production, right? But this is not just some minor private interest. This is of national importance. It's similar, in my opinion, to like a court matter. I'm pretty sure the judge does not want to hear, well, we were late with regards to getting our case together. That's why we were late to court because of a technical glitch. You know? Or we had an issue with promotions because there was a glitch in an Excel spreadsheet. Like, We don't want to hear about that. We don't want to hear during the election near the EBC, well, there was a problem with the machines, with new machines, and we didn't keep the old system running parallel, so there's going to be significant delays. And we're hoping, Keaton, that the error, they more or less got all of the error. We're hoping that there isn't some more unknown dollars out there that might be lost in limbo with regards to reporting. Or even worse, that technically speaking, they're reporting all of this wonderful revenue, right? Oh, we have all this extra revenue. Notice how it kind of paints our financial position in a better light, even though we don't have the final report yet. How confident are we, Keaton, that we don't have any other issues in the Ministry of Finance where, you know, it could be certain costs or liabilities or debts might have been forgotten?
Actually, this is what the Minister of Finance was indicating. He said the week of February 6, 2024, the Budget Division informed the Treasury Division of what they'd seen as an apparent material understatement in the reported revenue statement for 2023. Quoting from him directly, he says, the Budget Division discovered the revenue for 2023 was reported by the Treasury to the Auditor General was actually lower than it should have been. There was high revenue.
The thing too is, revenue implies you got money in. Accounts is a double entry system, right? So did not the Treasury have extra money in the balance that it cannot account for? Or is it that we don't actually have a way to properly account? That is to say, we don't have a proper double entry system in our own national accounts.
And the thing is, the motion is being passed, was passed, and gives 4 months extension to the report being laid. You see, quite frankly, the first thing that people in TNT would think is, well, the government is cooking the books, or the Minister of Finance is cooking the books. And you could see why they would think that. You could understand why it is that would be the opinion. Quite frankly, I would try to be reasonable oftentimes and say, you know what, the excuse is reasonable, whether or not it's legitimate, it's still a reasonable excuse. Oftentimes, I would try to be as objective and understanding as possible. But quite frankly, as a citizen of TNT, and with all the issues that we're facing, I'm not satisfied with the reasons or the justifications given on the part of the Minister of Finance. I don't think it holds water. I could be completely wrong. But as is the case here in TNT, this is all that we will learn from the Minister of Finance. This is all that we would probably get out of it.
Probably. But there's one last thing to this. Now, in the pre-action protocol letter, it stated that Ramdas did include the extra revenue in, I believe it might have been a separate audit, right? Or at the very least included a disclaimer stating, because of the significance of the matters described in the basis for disclaimer of opinion section of my report, I have not been able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to provide a basis for an audit opinion on these public accounts. Audit procedures were hindered as supporting documents were not provided to verify payments. As a consequence, known expenditure of $1 billion could not be verified because, again, the minister has said there's a $2.6 billion error, but the Auditor General has said, well, she was told it was $3.37+ billion that was being told of a revenue discrepancy. So she is saying, I did include the information sent. I just included a disclaimer to say that, hold on, we have problems with the information. And the reason why I want to go into this is then the Attorney General, he slammed, one newspaper's way of putting it, the Auditor General, because the Auditor General apparently, part of a reply, quoted a section of the Constitution which states that the Auditor General shall not be subject to direction or control of any other person or authority. And he is saying, well, she relies on that section wrongly. Separation of powers doesn't mean that one high office isn't allowed to speak on another branch. And, you know, he said it was remarkable that in an evolved democracy, because we are an evolved democracy, folks. We are evolved. We are top tier democracy here. This kind of conduct from a senior high constitutional office holder was remarkable in an evolved democracy. But my thing is, I'm wondering to what extent, Attorney General, are you completely aware of all the facts? Or are you just speaking out of what the Minister of Finance told you? Because I believe his response was predicated on the fact that he believes she herself did not include the information that the Finance Ministry sent to her about the error, whereas she is saying, no, I didn't include it. I didn't include it.
I think you're underestimating Reginald Moore as an attorney at law, and I also think that you're underestimating Reginald Moore as an attorney general.
I would just exhibit A of the defense, Your Honor. He said that he was a junior counsel on the Piarco case when the timeline of events showed that seemingly, at the very least, is very unlikely.
My point still stands.
Perjury in a court of law. I am not underestimating the general, I believe.
My point still stands.
In a foreign court of law.
However, I would like to read from the pre-action protocol letter.
Yes.
That was sent by the attorney representing Ms. Ramdas, and that is former Attorney General, Senior Counsel Anand Logan.
Always at the center of these things.
And what is stated is that Ramdas indicated to receive the amended national account, but noted that there was no amendment to reflect the increase in the revenue figure. And I quote from the letter, "The ministry had simply replaced the old revenue figure with a new increased amount, therefore faced with two sets of conflicting public accounts which were submitted on two different dates." She continued that this was unethical. It is clear from this that the Ministry of Finance simply backdated the original accounts and replaced the old revenue figures with new ones. It did so without showing any amendments to the national accounts. This would give the impression that the original accounts that were submitted within the statutory deadline had all along carried the higher revenue figure, where this is not factually correct.
But not just that. Legally speaking, which one does she goes with? Because from what you just read out there, I'm on the impression that she got no direction, except she got an informal, use this instead. Well, she didn't get it in writing.
No,
because they didn't properly document what happened. They just want a backdate and say use this instead. That might work for some clerical error on a low scale. But
you see, the thing is, the argument that she's making is, even though I received new figures and even though I received a notification from the Ministry of Finance, no justification, no reasoning. Put it this way, I received a new figure, but I didn't receive no invoice, I didn't receive no bill, nothing like that. It's just in layman's terms. That being said, as an accountant, as Auditor General, as my obligation, that's based on her letter, by the way. Yep. Remember, this is going to go back and forth, at least over the next 4 months. She says, it's my responsibility, because I have no justification, I cannot put this in my report. I have no information other than the fact that you're telling me, oh no, this is wrong, this is the correct figure. I can't do that as an accountant.
And you see, when the Attorney General is going to speak on this matter in such strong terms, where he's basically counter-attacking, he's not necessarily giving us, at least in some of his statements, anything that is practically relevant to the situation. He is just saying, well, how she could say that? She can't say that. We could talk. You can't tell us we can't talk. Like, I'm sorry, there's no technical value in what was said. So when you say don't underestimate the man, I mean, I'm not underestimating the man. I'm just pointing out that his statements have no value. All right. I want to move on now. Well, you've heard about the shark attack. I don't know if you want to speak about that.
Oh, yes, I've heard about the shark. I think most people in TNT have heard about it.
Yeah, if you have to be living under a rock. I mean, I was avoiding the news over the early parts of the weekend, and I heard about the shark attack.
No, I tend to avoid the news generally. I know it's my job and responsibility. Crikey, it's a lot to absorb.
When it's your job, on your off time, you at times try to avoid it, not always.
No, you need it. You need it. It's not a matter of you wanting to avoid it. You need
because in an evolved democracy as ours, Keaton, there's too much good news in the press, and it overwhelms us with all the evolved good news. Anyway, shark attack.
Oh boy. I actually saw a meme over the weekend about this shark attack.
Oh Lord.
Circulating on social media. It was sent to me about a photo of a shark portraying it to be the bull shark's mother. Saying, Oh, they gonna do this to my son. He never do nothing. I was like, you know, Trinis are in the face of everything.
Wow.
Trinis have a talent and a good sense of humor. He never do nothing. But anyway.
The sad part is there is some truth with regards to social commentary in that meme. I'll just say that.
But let me just say that first of all, to give an update, Mr. Smith is sedated at the ICU ward at Scarborough General Hospital. Thankfully, the update given by Dr. Faith B. Israel suggests that he will have the use of all his limbs, at least at this point. But you know, as recovery process...
part of the report says his hand was bitten off, but I'm not sure if that was completely accurate, because they said they reattached fingers.
Well, quite frankly, you know, I was going to get conflicting reports. There was a photo that was circulating of a fisherman who caught a shark in Tobago, saying it to be the bull shark. It was then disputed that that's a very old photo. It's not the actual shark that attacked the individual. You know, Mr. Smith is very fortunate. It's sad that on his vacation that this has happened, because I believe he was in shoulder high water. And it is not uncommon for sharks to approach so close to shallow waters.
It could be even shallower waters than that.
It can be, but it is still something that could be considered as rare, especially in Tobago with its waters. Furthermore, as I said, it's quite unfortunate, but thankfully they were able to get him out of the water, they were able to get him to the hospital, he went emergency surgery. Thus far, everything seems to be okay. He's in a stable condition, and his family is in constant communication with hospital officials to decide what is the next best course of action.
And the THA offered, you know, the apartments, food and board for the time that, you know, they have to stay here, because he was supposed to leave, well, not to wait. Is it a few days from now? I don't know why I have April the 26th in my head.
That particular detail, that information slips me. However, the Chief Secretary, now the Tobago House of Assembly did actually receive some sort of flack, really, for its bounty of $10,000 to fishermen who...
to the credit of those who sent the flack.
Yeah. However, what is really concerning for me is that the Chief Secretary sort of say that it is generally a healthy sign of a thriving ecosystem that that we're seeing sharks coming closer and closer to shore. And I'd say, on one hand, you might want to say that, but arguably there's another side to this as well. And in conversations with individuals, the point has been raised. It could actually be a sign that the ecosystem surrounding Tobago's waters are so bad. For example, the damage that Boca Reef has seen,
prey animals are
and it's bad. Yes, prey animals are finding less and less prey. Predators are finding less and less prey, and therefore are coming closer to shore, coming closer to human beings, searching for food. So the damage over the years, over decades, that Tobago has seen, that the Boca Reef has seen, is only... I'm not hoping this happens, but it would not be surprising if we see this. Secondly, it's, as you mentioned on the Prime, forgive me, sorry, early on talking point this morning, it's lunchtime for me. As you mentioned, it is not in a shark's nature to attack a human being.
Yes.
They tend to avoid human beings. But based off of knowledge that I know, watching every single documentary growing up, what is taught to you is that sharks will tend to bump into you as part of trying to figure out exactly what you are.
Might be the first
instance is bumping into you and then even taking a nibble at you, right? But because of the shark attack, and need I say, based on the photos I saw as well, this severe shark attack, I really hope it doesn't happen again. It would not surprise me though, given what Tobago's waters and ecosystems I've seen and experienced. So the Chief Secretary is saying it's a sign of a thriving ecosystem. Quite frankly, I think it's the opposite. The Chief Secretary is not an expert, neither am I.
I will closer think that you're correct insofar to saying there's nothing to suggest that the ecosystem is better than it was, right? At one point in time, certain fishing resources, seemingly. There's concern about overfishing in Trinidad and Tobago's waters. Flying fish was one species in particular. Of course, the whole thing about Barbados and coming down south or coming into our waters to fish our fish. But that notwithstanding, so you're saying that for decades, Tobago's ecosystem was horrible? Like, we're not talking about recent things were bad. We're talking about way before development, before build-up, before people starting to live more in Tobago. Because I wasn't sure, but it seems as though other people who've spoken on this, like the minority leader and others, there's no records of shark attacks in the distant past, when these things started to be documented. So,
you see, the thing is, shark sightings in Tobago are not common at all. You've spotted hammerhead sharks, and the shark in that photo, though I'm not yet to verify it, that was apparently from last year or the year before. That was circulating as fishermen catching the bull shark. It looked like a tiger shark, but I could be wrong about that. Over 8 feet. A bull shark over 8 feet. Now, there's a reason why they call them a bull shark.
Yes.
Right? Tiger sharks, bull sharks, they are naturally aggressive.
Those two are probably worse than great whites for our environment.
Well, for our environment, yes. The bull shark and the tiger shark. That being said, shark sightings in Tobago are not.
Yeah, we don't have shark diving here.
An 8-feet bull shark is quite incredible, especially coming so close to shore. There was another video circulating of people, it looked to be on a party boat in shallow water, saying, look, the shark, or look, one is shark. Again, it's very hard because we, on the Tobago House of Assembly, keep sharing information with us. Nobody's verifying these photos or videos, other than the fact that the bounty has been removed.
Yes, so. And I think there's another factor that could have pushed the bull sharks closer to human activity in Tobago, and that is the fact that it might not be our ecosystem that changed enough to change their behavior. It could have been, situations outside that are forcing them to try and range in waters where they may not have, swam as much, hunted for prey as much. So they're coming here now. They don't necessarily know what's what. And, at the end of the day, if they won't know what a human is. They would try to compare it to something that they know, some sort of aquatic animal. And to some extent, that's where the attacks usually happen from, mistaking us from one of their usual prey animals. They bite, they realize, ooh, this is not a seal, this is not something that I usually eat, I'm gonna let it go. Unfortunately, what happens is the aftermath of a probing bite leaves a lot of people with some pretty gruesome wounds, depending. Now, the amount of wounds that the unfortunate victim had made me wonder, was it really a probe for him to bite into the leg and the arm, and I think maybe the side?
Put it this way, you take one bite. Remember a shark, I think...
Great whites at times, they just take one bite and they go.
And sharks, I think, could sniff blood, at one drop of blood, 3 miles away, right? So if that shark took one bite and all that blood came out, what is this shark going to do as a predator? You remember bull sharks and tiger sharks are known to be aggressive. And bull sharks, though rare, still have a history of attacking human beings unprovoked. Now, there are a couple other things to bear in mind as well, right? One, I don't know if the individual's back was turned when the shark attack took place. You wouldn't have seen the shark coming.
Or what kind of activity they were doing.
Two, people who find themselves in this situation, and I hope you never find yourself in this situation, this advice may sound very stupid to you, because it's only in your instinct to run and to panic, but the worst thing you can do is swim away from a shark when it is close to you.
And panic.
Yeah. That's quite possibly the worst thing you can do. Again, I know it may sound stupid to you. I know that you might panic and it's only in your instinct and nature. I get that. But the worst thing you can do is panic and swim away, because all that splashing and all of that fast swimming and the kicking of the water just kicks predator mode into the shark instantly. They are going to think, because of that action, because of the splashing and kicking, they're going to think, hey, you're prey. I'm coming after you.
There's a flip side to this, and I hope more marine biologists, maybe what we need is a lot more education if this turns into be a much more frequent occurrence. There's also some people, they have the theory that, look, when you're attacked by a shark, once you get to the attack phase now at times it might be better. And I'm not saying this is what you absolutely should do, I'm just mentioning this. You could look into it yourself, and hopefully the authorities will look into this more to advise the public. You counterattack, because like with this gentleman, you don't always know how far the shark is going to go. And a shark, generally speaking, is not going to want to mess with anything that's going to go after its eyes or its gills.
Well, actually,
that's not easy to do, and it's not always, I think, the best thing to do. Don't like, oh, there's a shark, I'm going to attack him first.
No, the two places that you really define yourself when it comes to a shark is, again, I know this sounds stupid because people panic, it's only instinct in nature. Yes, you're right, the gills. Definitely, the gills are, but the first point of contact where you can actually disorient a shark is, as they refer to, the snout of the shark.
Yeah.
As you give as hard of a bang as possible, you disorient the shark. The shark will lose all sense of motion, go dizzy, phase out. And that's really what you're hoping for.
I mean, again, this is not advice, because we're not saying, oh, if there's a shark in the water, just go for the snout. There's no shark fighting expert. None of us have taken shark fighting lessons. There's a good chance you might just miss and get bitten anyway. So part of it is, the real advice is be vigilant when you're in the water, right? Don't just take it for granted anymore that it can't happen here. Because I think, you watch Jaws and you think, no, but in TNT, we don't have that here. Well, yes, there's no big great white like that. But shark attacks, now, we don't know. We don't know. Maybe, in 6 months we will say it was a fluke. But until then, just be a little bit vigilant, be a little bit more aware. Keep your eyes out. Don't just assume, oh, it's safe.
And enjoy bacon shark. It was a good way to relax.
Is it good? I don't know. There's so much bad bacon shark.
Well, some people have told me, hey, listen, the bacon shark that you get now is not even a real shark.
I was sick over Easter after eating a bacon shark. Not saying that it's the thing that got me sick. I'm just saying, correlation is not causation. I'm just putting it out there. Maybe the shark is, revenge for all of the bacon shark stands, karma.
Stick to fried rice, Sean. Stick to fried rice. Anyway, listen, guys, let's take a break here on the program because we've probably spoken your ears out. So you probably need a break from us as well. But I tell you what, you could speak our ears out when we return. We'll open up the phone lines. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to himself. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have 2 of the 3 species of anteaters right here.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Welcome back to Talking Point.
I was wondering how... it's not like we actually have a formal system in place, but yes, phone lines now, folks, are open as we are back here on Talking Point on WESN, the Content Capital Show. Michael Small, Keaton Shah, Monday morning here. And we want to hear from you, the viewer. You can have your say. Of course, other things have happened in TNT that you could speak about. We took a rest from the medical situation, although I find it both intriguing and alarming and somewhat depressing. But also, other things were going on. So like I said, call in, have your say. We want to hear from you, the viewer. No ASP today, unfortunately. We should have him tomorrow. But Keaton, while we're waiting on calls, I just want to ask, because you have concerns over the government paying out money to lawsuits, and one of the more interesting OG topics of Talking Point has now reached the point where it seems as though the visionary officer is going to sue the state. I have some good news for you. My lack of expertise is saying I very much doubt he could win given the circumstances of what we know. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, you know, this is a little bit more than just 6 days wrongful imprisonment, which was one of the more recent lawsuits that the state had to pay fork over $140,000 for, just for 6 days of messing up a man's life.
$140,000 for 6 days?
For 6 days. This is 75 people on the breadline, and an entire plant having to be shut down.
80, I think.
Or 80.
Yeah. You asked me my thoughts on...
$400 million in debt.
On 400 million US. US. Yeah.
How did it get so much before somebody figured out this is a bad idea?
Anyway, with respect to the lawsuits, of course, the Mr. Ainsley Gill and Nikon have every right to legal redress. Whether or not they get it, well, that's up to the courts and the system of justice here in TNT. You know, I think people have misinterpreted my comments previously when I said I don't like it when the government is sued, when people sue the government. No, what frustrates me is the fact that time and time again, and you just pointed out $140,000 for 6 days in prison,
not faulting the guy who sued and won.
We always have to fork out so much taxpayers' dollars because of we're not getting things right. That is what frustrates me.
Yes.
I understand why people have to take the action that they take. I see how it is everyone's right to seek legal redress. It's just frustrating that, you know, taxpayers' dollars are always forked out when other people get it so wrong.
Well, this is the irony. This is one case where I think the state, you know, after the fact, potentially, right? But they got information when Nikon started operating with regards to how it was being run. So I can understand the state supporting Nikon initially, right? Even though there was a shortage of natural gas supply and other plants were being shut down, if not before, not too long after Nikon was open. So we had a lot of questions about that. But the state is looking at the fact that, one, Nikon could not pay off its bills to supply gas to Nikon, and the state can't foot that bill. Two, Nikon had 2 accidents, the second of which one person died. And to some extent, they have been closed maybe as long as they have actually been open and operating. They have been shut down. So to me, if I'm the state, I'm thinking, why am I going to support you on hopes that you could pay me back when you've shut down twice now and you can't keep your accounts current at any point in time and you owe me tens of billions of US dollars as well? And I actually think the state maybe got this one right. I question what the various financial institutions that gave loans to Naquan, what they were thinking at the time. Is it that they've reached the point of no return? We're already in it for a penny, so we'll go in for a pound. We'll throw good money after bad because the loss would be too much to write off the initial investment when things weren't looking quite as bad as they did towards the end. I don't understand, and there's a part of me that wonders, hey, maybe the government did get it right. They was like, look, there's a practical limit. We've reached the limit. Let's not be stubborn now, and let's just admit that this isn't working, and let's pull the plug.
God, I have a headache. Listen, what I also think about when discussing Naquan is exactly what is it that Ainstiegel and Naquan were promised by the government. In fact, that's precisely why they're taking the government to court for not fulfilling their end.
Is a verbal promise that may or may not be not entirely legal. We don't know. We don't know if these promises were fair.
You see,
could that be
a verbal promise is a form of a social contract, right? So it's still technically a contract. That means that why would you go into such a huge business venture with word of mouth promises? Also, this is the one that baffles me. Given our oil production, because we're since the 1990s we're primarily gas. My apologies. From the 1980s we're primarily gas. We're a gas economy, not an oil economy. Given our gas reserves and our gas productions have declined, and our revenues from gas not what it used to be, precisely why did Naquan seek to invest so much money into the Trinidad and Tobago market? These are all key questions that I have, and I'm curious more so, given that he's suing the state for not keeping the end of the obligation, exactly what it is you were promised. We ain't gonna get the details.
And
We're going to go to court, so just remember that.
There were two other instances of trying to use the same plant for similar projects that bust. I believe one might have been under Manning, and I can't remember if the other one was under Kamla or under Pandey, right? So this is the third attempt. Where did the confidence come from where we will be successful where others were not successful, right? As a private entity and not as a fully state-owned entity. Yes, the government has some, and that's the other thing, the government has some stake in Naquan, and yet they're all saying, no mas, because to some extent now, the court will have to decide if it goes that far, of verbal promises made at the start of the venture.
Why would you start a business venture so large and a verbal promise?
The government is like, yes, we gave promises, but when he couldn't keep the plant open and he couldn't pay the bills, we can't get gas for him based off of no money coming in. We need money to get the gas, right? We only have so much resources that we could give him. Right? Our own liquidity chain can't just be sacrificed for the sake of him getting on his feet. Where was his business model? Where was his capital reserves, his operational reserves? Where was his quality control to make sure you didn't have two accidents at the beginning? One would think with a plant, when you start operations, you shouldn't just have accidents right off the bat. Maybe you have an accident. You can have two that's going to shut you down for months at a time, both times. Granted, it's an old plant, which again, do your due diligence beforehand to make sure that you cross your T's, dot all your I's, so that you don't have instances like this. Because I'm pretty sure the government is going to say, promises were promises, but we didn't know how bad it was going to get. And we can't be expected now to foot the bill to keep his venture going. And I do wonder if this may be, is this a situation where we take it for granted? Well, the government will keep paying. Because I know of many situations where people take it for granted the government are going to pay, right? The government are not going to let anything fail. There were people who did not think the government was going to shut down BWI. And then they shut down BWI and replaced it with CAL because they didn't just want to restructure, they wanted to wholly change the thing, right?
And there went our slots at Heathrow Airport.
Oh no, that was a whole other issue, right? So I don't even know, even if the promises would hold up in court, generally speaking, I don't know if under the specific situation they would hold up. I could be wrong. We have Sanford on the line. Maybe he will want to hear on this or something else. Good morning, caller, on the air.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, are you hearing me?
I think very soft. Hello, hello?
Yes, sure. I am hearing you clearly, but I'm not sure if you
we can hear you better now.
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, now let me say this about this. I want to talk about this shark attack in Tobago.
Right.
There are a couple of things. One, looking at the facts, this happened at low tide. This happened at low tide, and that side of Tobago where where the Kama beaches are, and at shoulder height, it is not very far in the water, even for low tide.
Yes.
Now, the other thing is, let me say this, say to you all, and listen to Farley's comment about the ecosystem. Tobago, around Tobago, if you dive, Tobago have always had sharks around Tobago. The reason why you never see sharks coming inland closer to the shore is because the Tobago waters has always been rich with, I mean, extremely rich with fish. So they don't have to venture in because there's food out there for them. There's food out there for them. Now, so the fact that a shark that size came into shore is a bit worrying.
Yeah, that's
now, one of the things I have an issue with, and in this whole thing is that, was there any lifeguard at Turtle Beach? And they need, if it is, now this can affect the tourism package in Tobago. Fear is something that nobody wants to get bite from a shark. So I am saying, I know previously they used to have lifeguards, but I have not seen lifeguards on some of those beaches, especially on that coast there. You're talking about Grafton, you're talking about Turtle Beach, you're talking about Buku, you're talking about Mount Irvin, coming down that entire area there. So what the THA needs to look at is beefing up their manpower for observation, because this can become a very, very serious situation, because the waters are warming as well. People not understanding the waters are warming as well, and because of that, the ecosystem is out of whack.
Yes.
The ecosystem is out of whack. In addition to which, you have a lot of fishing taking place off the coast there. A lot of fishing. If you listen to that gentleman from the Tobago Fisher Folk Association, and they talk about how many Bajan boats and Spanish boats are out there fishing. So you can have all these things they have to look at and consider, because this can be a very serious situation that affects the tourism package in Tobago. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, you're absolutely correct that it can affect the tourism situation. I don't expect it to as much. But a couple of things. One, have you ever been to Turtle Beach? You've been in Tobago. Great part of your life.
I've been at that part of the island. I can't remember if I was swam there.
Mount Irvin?
Mount Irvin, yes.
Mount Irvin it could be a bit of a rough beach at times, and there's quite a bit a dip there.
Yes.
Turtle Beach is a large strip of beach. Caller, you're right. I've been to Turtle Beach. I like Turtle Beach. One, the beach is very much quiet at times.
Yes.
Two, I never seen a lifeguard at Turtle Beach. Never seen a lifeguard at Turtle Beach. There was, however, a water sports coordinator at Starfish Resort who witnessed the entire attack. But I never seen a lifeguard
the thing is, one of the things that lifeguards are needed, right? You probably will survive the initial attack. You then have to make it in shore to get medical attention. And that first step after the attack, getting to shore, that's one of the things that the lifeguard is important for. The other thing, of course, is with the lifeguard towers, they have a better chance of maybe spotting the shark, warning bathers before an attack happens.
Really?
To get out.
You've seen a lifeguard?
I said better chance. I didn't necessarily say that it's guaranteed.
I shall not misquote
right?
your mince words.
Because, I mean, it's better than a person not in a tower, in the water, you know. We have another caller in the line, I think, also from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. You're on here?
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
A quick one. Now, I, in my humble opinion, I think that action to the court with the parliamentary matter has been a fail. Because these guys are protected in Parliament by whatever they say, of course, with a reason. But I don't think anything will come out of that. They're going to lose it. Right? And they should stop that nonsense because they're just paying legal fees for nothing. Another thing, the shark. Now, remember, you are entering their territory, eh? The sea is, yes, there is Cameroon. Now, you can't live in underwater, but they could. And they can't live over here. So we are our grounds and they are in their grounds. We respect their grounds. And another thing, there's no use of force policy in there. You understand? So you can't go and fire back. You can't bite them back. That is their land. That is their territory. Okay, partner?
Yes, caller. Thank you. Do you have a good day? You're right. Very much their territory. We're entering their territory.
Yep. And we need to understand all of the implications of what that means. And again, I asked the question before you joined me, Keaton. There's a chance now that we have to look to invest in anti-shark technology, whether it's netting, whether it is electronic devices to keep them away from beaches.
I believe Store Bay has that netting. To what extent does it protect the entire bay?
They have netting?
Yeah, they have netting.
I have been in Store Bay for quite some time.
Yeah, they have netting.
We have Siobhan on the line. Good morning, caller, you on here.
Good morning to you, sir.
I find it interesting to listen to the arguments about this error with the Minister of Finance and the argument that was put forward when the merit list was withdrawn for Commissioner of Police because they were saying, there were certain people saying you couldn't withdraw the list once it was submitted. And this incident clearly indicates that you must be able to withdraw something that you know is incorrect and to substitute the proper position. What I had said at that time, you may require the reason in writing or something like that. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, that's...
I agree with you.
That's a good point.
But the argument is not the fact of it being withdrawn and new information being sent.
No, but it's saying replaced.
Yes, the argument, Cole, and you just to emphasize your point, there was no justification, no reasoning, no explanation given to the Auditor General. It was just a new figure, you know?
Well, I still trying to follow that.
Yeah.
The amount of documentation, and I really didn't follow in the details, except it seems to be no doubt that an error was made. And certain people didn't want the error corrected. That's all I could gather first, and I can understand that logic. Any error, once it is proven an error, should be able to be corrected.
Yes.
Yes. But I think...
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. But to her credit, again, you like, if it was a business account, small business, right? My petty cash accounts when I'm with the family business, I make notes on everything.
So this is the thing.
Especially if it's an error.
The Minister, the Auditor General issued, well, the attorneys representing the Auditor General issued a pre-action protocol letter to clear the air. And she clearly stated, again, it seems as though this was backdated. Because I was given new figures, but nothing more than that. So, on the basis, on the principle, you are correct, caller from Shagonas. But we also need to understand and recognize that no justification or actual explanation was given to the Auditor General. The Minister of Finance, the Minister has every right to correct it. But as an accountant, essentially, she's like, well, hold on, how could I include this if I'm seeing a backdated information with new figures? I don't know what's going on here.
Because like I said...
No, hold on, sorry. The Minister did give an explanation, but nothing in writing to the Auditor General. His explanation is now issued in the newspapers.
Right.
Right? That's it.
No, because the thing is, again, accountings, you have to have a double entry to balance it. She has nothing to balance it off. She just has, extra revenue. So I want to know, is even the information sent, does it fall in line with, are the books balanced, or all of a sudden Treasury just has extra revenue?
Caller, the second caller from San Fernando pointed it out, parliamentary privilege as well. You can say whatever you want in Parliament.
I wonder if her legal action will then, of course, have to go beyond just retract the statements in Parliament. I do wonder. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on air.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I want to get in the conversation on the Auditor General. I am happy to know that people who is there to see, who is supposed to oversee what is happening, at least with the Treasury. And I want to raise a point and all too. Remember for the Christmas Day when the Finance Minister instruct that money being paid, find the money and pay it.
Yeah.
And then the people who was authorized to do that say, hey, that time can happen. That time can happen. And after this, the same thing has been going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother. Yeah, boy. Seems as though we could just call these shots and do whatever we want to attempt to.
And this is an interesting thing with the meritless situation. They're similar in another way as well. In the meritless situation, the Prime Minister said, well, hold on. What do you mean independent? I'm there at the National Security Council. I could comment on these things, right? Although we later found out he wasn't just commenting on these things. And the Attorney General is saying the same thing. Like, we could speak about these things, but I think the Auditor General is saying, you're not just speaking about it, say, right? You're saying that I did not do a thing that I'm supposed to be doing. You're not just passing fair comment. And you're basically, you are trying to force me to do something that I think I should not do, or I possibly cannot do, based on proper ethical considerations of my job, or the proper action or conduct of my job.
We have two callers, last two callers for the morning. First caller from Gascade. Good morning, caller. Good morning.
It is really a joy this morning listening to the variety of issues that the population has to take up. But I want to join the many callers who raised the issue about the Auditor General matter, and to say to you that this is really, in my view, another attempt by this political party that governs the country to get rid of a state officer. This strikes me as another coup by the politicians to infringe on another area of governance that they have no control over, really, other than to ensure that there is compliance. And this has nothing to do with compliance. This has to do with sheer negligence, either up or down the chain. And it must be dealt with. I fear maybe they cannot control the Auditor General, and the Auditor General, therefore, has been targeted. So go. I am eagerly awaiting to see the final outcome of this matter, because this looks like it could be a Privy Council matter going forward.
Maybe.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
Do we have Porter Spain on the line as well?
Possibly. Final caller. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
You're on the air. Hello, caller. Don't listen to the TV. Listen to your phone.
Good morning.
Good morning. You're on the air, caller. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm listening to you suggesting that the government should have put an explanation in the corrective report to the Auditor General.
Yes, written.
And I'm saying to you, if I submit some figures to you, and then realize they're wrong, and try to cook it by not making another report, but just backdating and suggest that is the original report, I don't need to explain anything. There's nothing for me to put this explanation. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. He referenced, if I'm trying to cook the books, why am I going to give you an explanation for? At least that's the interpretation I got from what you just mentioned, caller. Right?
Yeah, because
if I try to cook the books, why I need to give you an explanation?
Right, I do wonder, even on a smaller scale, on a private small business, if that would be legal. right? Depending, because you're just going to tell the auditor, oh, wait, I made a mistake. I don't know. And again, like, that's the thing. She needs a written explanation to account for the fact that she has two separate legal documents that both say different things, but she could only use one. So she needs it in writing, because if she doesn't get it in writing, then, you know, to some extent people will ask, well, how you could do this? Why did you do this? She will be implicated if this goes any further. And I think Mr. Cascade...
Sorry? I'm sorry,
They want the director, let it be known on the record, the directors are taking a late caller. We have Digger Martin on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on the air.
I apologize. You told me I'm coming in too early, so I'm coming in last today. A quick thing today. I want to talk about the Bacchanal with the Auditor General. I want to talk about the South Regional Health Authority and the response to the opposition leader. I linking it to a failure in the procurement legislation that we decimated, I think we, meaning being part of the government, to take out medical services from it. And if you realize the rationale behind it, the body equipment in 2013, it started malfunction in 2016, which government came in. And at the same time, they're supposed to put in the full-fledged procurement thing, and they didn't do it. They create an emergency to give friends and family contract. I go on. Quick and short.
Thanks, caller.
Thank you, caller.
I will refrain from speaking about that aspect of it. I actually had other things that I could have speak on it, but I'll refrain from that aspect right now.
We have one more topic that we need to cover during the course of this week's discussions. The Commissioner of Police, her term in office is coming to an end. Not necessarily any hint or suggestion thus far that her term will be extended. Remember, it was already extended last year, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I just find the timing is curious and the parallels are curious, because I think Mr. Cascade was right. This is just one more instance where critics of the government who want to say that they're undermining independent officers will get more ammunition, because you can't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore. You just can't. It doesn't mean that they're guilty. It's just that we're not going to assume that they're innocent and there are innocent explanations to all of this and everything is fine and we're going to just turn a blind eye and not be too worried. No, we want more significant, direct, substantive news, facts, information on what's going on. I don't think we as a population should accept, oh, there's nothing to see here, it's just an error. It's just an error, Keaton. We just misplaced $2.6 to $3.4 billion, just an error, and we're gonna try to do something that looks as though, at the very least, I'm not saying it's fraud, I'm just saying if it was fraud, this might be what it looks like.
That's the end of talking points. Sean wants transparency and justice. I want oxtail and dumpling.
Funny how everything comes down to transparency and oxtail. It's true. It's true. Ask the Mayor of Arima. For him, oxtail was one of the key indicators. It's true.
Oxtail is a beautiful thing.
We take it for granted, but at the end of the day.
Come to think of it, boy. You ever see an ox with a tail that, with all them bones like that?
No, not with a tail that thick. It's not like I see oxes every day. I don't know.
Oxen.
Anyway, oxen. Sorry.
Goodbye, Sean Michael Swell.
I see Wild Wednesdays improving your knowledge of
my
the animal kingdom.
My vocabulary.
Yes. But
also, somebody gave me a book, How to Speak English. You got that book too. You got that book too.
I did?
Yeah, I think everybody got a copy of that book.
Well,
I think the caller from Cascade was so generous to one day pop into the office and be like, I'm giving everybody a gift.
I didn't get the memo. I didn't get that message. All right, okay. Well, folks.
Listen, gifts in dollars and cents will be much more appreciated. I'm just saying.
As an independent observer, I would like to ask the public to refrain from sending me any gifts in dollars and cents, because like the Auditor General, I will not like to be a part of any sort of
I wasn't referring to you all. You can just send Sean and I an invitation to have oxtail and dumpling sometime.
I mean, how ethical is that for us to accept, oxtails?
We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Man, I didn't even play the outro.
WESN.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
I would. The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian.
outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Didier Fusilier, President of the Grand Palais, thank you so much for being with us here on France 24. This Grand Hall has hosted an eclectic variety of events. When it reopens, do you plan to continue in that direction?
The Palais was made for cultural events.
It was built for the World's Fair in 1900, and we can bring anything to life here. We really want to keep that spirit, but with offerings for today. Major digital exhibitions, but also Matisse, Chanel, and more contemporary artists. It's really the idea of cultural events that drives us.
And what will the Grand Palais offer as an Olympic venue?
We have to imagine the athletes. Athletes are used to competing in stadiums. And here they'll warm up just behind us, and then they come around and go down these stairs and wow. And then they see the glass roof. We saw this with the French fencing team when they came over recently. They were all looking around, amazed, and I think it's something that the public will share as well. The public is going to enjoy a building that is one of a kind in the world. You have to imagine the size of this place. You can fit all of Versailles Palace in it. It's enormous, at the foot of the Champs-Élysées in the very heart of Paris.
And this is the first time in history that this exceptional structure has undergone a complete renovation. Why was it necessary now?
You should know that if we didn't do the restoration, we wouldn't be able to step inside the Grand Palais. It was unavoidable. We changed all the electricity, pipes, repairs, also the heating. There was no heating system. Think about it. In 1900, there was no electricity. At night, it was all dark. Redoing the glass roof was an enormous project. We constructed 43 elevators. When it was built, it only had 2. We brought this building up to a 21st century standard when it was never envisioned for this. We also discovered the original colors of the Grand Palais that had disappeared. The glass, the bronze. These are not black, but a dark green. All the details, the mosaics, the sculptures. A lot of artists worked in this building. Matisse worked here, Cézanne when they were very young. So we are bringing all of this back to life, and it really looks beautiful.
Quite a history. Now, this is an expensive project, nearly 500 million euros. In order to pay for that, are you going to need to increase the number of commercial events here, perhaps at the expense of the cultural events that have been open to the public?
We have always had, and it has always been noble, to welcome large exhibitions. The Paris Book Festival, Art Basel, Paris Photo, the big fashion runway shows, they all bring in money. But we also welcome big artists, the big exhibitions, and also new offerings, new exhibitions. We are going to dive into artificial intelligence. We will bring the Grand Palais into this new era. Imagine the first time in the world that a mechanical escalator, a moving walkway was used, like we see in metros all over the world now. It was here. There's this extraordinary film of it, where people are holding onto their hats, discovering something new. This is the spirit we want to keep. It's very important to President Emmanuel Macron that this is a rejuvenated palais, a palais for all the innovation that will come, not just for right now, but for a century.
Years of renovations, more than 800 workers, and one very strict deadline. Restoring Europe's largest nave is quite the undertaking. We went to speak with the person overseeing it all.
The
challenge of this operation has been the timing, the relatively short timing that we've been given to redo 70,000 square meters. Nothing is standard in this structure. Everything is unique. So each time it's necessary to reinvent a solution for each of its different parts.
Of course, the most iconic feature of the Grand Palais is this immense glass roof, but I imagine it must have posed some difficulties when it comes to increasing the energy efficiency of this building.
We are in a greenhouse. It's a glass roof that doesn't have a protective system against heat and cold, and therefore we're naturally at the mercy of the weather conditions. We decided to not fight it. It will be hot up there near the roof in the summer, and it will be cold in the winter. Instead, we decided to install a system that allows for comfort at the level we're standing. Under the floors, we installed a network of plastic pipes that circulate cold water in the summer or hot water in the winter to maintain a reasonable level of comfort for visitors. It was absolutely out of the question to try and put a system in place which would heat or cool down the entire 450,000 cubic meters under the roof. That would be an energy disaster.
Now, you mentioned the big deadline of the Olympic Games coming up, but there is work that's going to continue after the Games. What other kind of projects?
The Games were our reason to have this part ready. The area being used by the Games is 30,000 square meters out of 70,000 square meters. So this area here for the Olympic Games will be 95 to 99% done in time for the Games. But in the other zones, the other 40,000 square meters will start again in September and finish the work in March or April 2025 and reopen all the other parts of the Grand Palais.
Daniel Sancho, thank you so much for your time today.
Merci.
To immortalize this titanic construction site, photographer Marguerite Bornhauser has been given carte blanche access. She takes us to parts of the Grand Palais, usually off limits.
We're on the rooftop of the Grand Palais with a 360-degree view of Paris. It's magnificent. We're above the entire city, really in the clouds. People look like tiny dots. We have this glorious glass roof, mix of architectural styles. This immense flag, it's superb. Everything inspires me. There are the aspects everyone knows about the Grand Palais, such as the wonderful nave and the immense size. And at the same time, I have an eye for detail, so I like the perks from the construction site. Everything that falls to the ground. A glint of light. It's endless.
She gets her inspiration from the rooftops, but also underground.
These are the scraps from the construction site. It's everything the workers throw away and I collect it. I'll take pieces to a photo lab and make photograms with them. Color variations that act sort of like an X-ray of the object. It's an ordinary object, construction site garbage, but I try to magnify that and turn it into abstract compositions. The brightness with these neon lights is quite astonishing. It's spectacular, very theatrical, and I also find that it represents the workers' labor well. The people become a bit like shadows. There's a lot of strong contrast. It's dramatic, actually, with these lights falling like that. With these neon lights, the ceilings are lower. There are fewer colors. It's very, very different.
In the coming months, Marguerite Bornhauser will continue to photograph the construction site, because while the main hall will be ready for the Olympics, work in the rest of the Grand Palais continues until June 2025.
And that brings us to the end of this Grand Palais edition of France in Focus. Thanks so much for tuning in, and stay with us here on France 24.
À 16h34 et 33 secondes, on a reçu une notification nous indiquant qu'il y a une personne qui était rentrée dans la zone interdite. Ces 8 événements, c'est par exemple la détection d'intrusion de personnes ou de véhicules dans des zones interdites, c'est de la détection de bagages abandonnés dans les gares ou dans les stations de métro, de la détection de situations dans lesquelles il y a une affluence qui est anormalement élevée. Moi, je fais souvent l'analogie sur le fonctionnement de notre logiciel avec des ombres chinoises. En fait, notre logiciel, lui, ce qu'il regarde, c'est des silhouettes. Et il regarde que la forme. Donc, est-ce que c'est plutôt la silhouette d'une personne, la silhouette d'un scooter, la silhouette ou le gabarit d'un véhicule? On s'intéresse juste à l'objet et la scène dans son contexte, donc des événements. Est-ce qu'il y a un véhicule qui est rentré dans une zone interdite? On envoie un signalement à un opérateur vidéo et c'est lui ensuite qui analyse plus précisément la situation pour prendre une décision.
Le fait que l'industrie et les entreprises disent qu'il n'y a pas de traitement de données biométriques, c'est vraiment une stratégie de communication pour minimiser en fait ce que fait vraiment cette technologie. Cette technologie, elle analyse ce qui se passe dans l'espace public. Dans l'espace public, il y a des humains, il y a des corps humains, donc c'est impossible de dire qu'il n'y a pas d'atteinte à la vie privée, aux données personnelles. On va être classifié en permanence sur la base de notre corps, sur la base de nos déplacements, sur la base de nos comportements, de nos démarches, de ce qu'on fait. Donc ça, c'est de l'intime, c'est de la biométrie. Les entreprises qui fabriquent poussent à ce qu'il y ait une légalisation sur le long terme. Et donc il y a cette volonté-là, et les Jeux Olympiques ici sont apparus comme un instrument parfait pour accélérer ce calendrier et pour instrumentaliser en fait cet événement qui est en fait exceptionnel, où les gens ont un sentiment d'insécurité qui est plus fort, et donc ça paraît plus acceptable de légaliser cette technologie.
Join us on France 24 for a crucial and exciting election season. In June of this year, citizens from the EU's 27 member states will be asked to choose the next European Parliament made up of 720 MEPs. France 24's Talking Europe will bring you a series of special programs. We'll look at the political powerhouses in the EU and also talk about groups of countries and regions. We'll have debates for you with MEPs from different political parties, and we'll look at the key issues of our day that cut across national borders. Talking Europe takes you to the heart of the EU election campaign.
Talking Europe on France 24 and France24.com. Worldview with Francois Picard. 2 hours of current affairs featuring the debate. Listen to the views that count on all the major international issues.
Join us for Worldview right here on France 24.
Godula for Paris Direct. Don't miss out on this comprehensive lunchtime news roundup.
Join me for Paris Direct every French lunchtime on France 24.
WESN.
As usual, welcome to the program. I'm Andy Johnson. Good to see you. This edition of 10 Questions here on WESN. Our guest in for this discussion, Mr. Kwasi Mutema. He's the political leader of the National Joint Action Committee. The issue, the decision by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to rename the holiday Emancipation Day to African Emancipation Day. Some people, there are those who are for and against it. Let me just tell you, in two newspapers this week, the same two letters were carried. In the Express, the Express of April 25th, letters carried from Mr. Okay, we come back to that in a moment. Asher Duke wrote this letter. The headline is, Ensure Holiday Renaming Promotes Dialogue and Unity. And Mr. Ayagoro Ume, a former leading figure in the NJAC as well, who's now centered around an organization he calls the Sinue Center. The headline on his letter to the editor is, People won't be fooled. Government PR will backfire. In the Friday, April 26th edition of Newsday, the same two letters. On Ms. Dube's letter, the headline is, Case for and Against African Emancipation Day. And Mr. Ome's letter, the headline, Renaming Emancipation Day Meaningless. Is that the case? Or what views do you have? We're going to try and get a sense of how it plays and what they're saying about it. The National Joint Action Committee, at one point, one of the major civil society organizations in the country, coming through the period of 1970. Between then and now, the organization has had some changes in different ways, but it continues to represent significant sentiments in the country. Good to have you, my friend.
Thank you, Andy, and greetings to you and your viewers as well.
Right. Let me just ask. Let's begin by asking: nothing has come out in the public as to what NJAC has said about it. Is that a policy decision?
No. In fact, I think one newspaper, because we had an interview on one television station, and I should clarify. I welcome the opportunity. One newspaper carried a report which to us was not an accurate interpretation of that interview. The report actually went on to state that NJAC agrees with the renaming, but the fact that our PIV was not being consulted, and that isn't so, right?
You said who were consulted?
Well, we made the point that there was not a lack of consultation, not only with NJAC, because we felt that if, for whatever reason, the cabinet had that intention, something like that, I think there ought to be some level of consultation.
Well, I wanted to ask that. To what extent you all may have been consulted about it?
Not at all. As far as we are aware, there was no consultation, not only with us,
anybody.
but anybody at all. This thing just popped out of nowhere, deep in the night, which makes it somewhat suspicious as well, because if you're contemplating something as important as a snake, for example, if we go back to the origins in 1985,
for Emancipation Day,
before the day was declared a public holiday, NJAC led a national discussion on that. In fact, we held activities for a number of years. And we held a national discussion. There were consultations with various bodies before we made that proposal to the government. At that time, we petitioned the government.
You went with a kind of people's mandate.
That is it. So it came from the people, right, to have that day. So if now the government, as I said, contemplates some kind of change with that, I think there should have been some form, that was a proper thing to do, some form of consultation. So that, as I said, that would create some kind of suspicion around your intention. And we also, our thinking is that I don't know on what basis the cabinet saw that as a priority. Because if you are thinking now in focusing on the African community in some way, there are so many other areas of priority, right? The question of education, you know, for our people. The question of what is happening to our young men, African young men, and so on. Yeah, so there's so much priority other than the name of Emancipation Day. Yeah. Why you make that a priority at this point, we are at a loss, right? Plus, there were certain statements made by the Prime Minister, right? That, surrounding it. Yeah, surrounding it. I think that raises some very troubling questions. Yeah. For example, the statement where he stated, I quoted him, he explained that the specificity was necessary as he has observed at the international level that there are other people attempting to climb on the emancipation bandwagon and are attempting to add appendages to it.
But what kind of other people? Where was that?
No, well, he said the international level, so we don't know. But how could you refer to emancipation as a bandwagon? You know, this is a global phenomenon as far as we are concerned, and there's always the attempt, should be the attempt, to make it more inclusive than exclusive. In fact, if one remembers in 1996, NJAC, through one of our institutions, the Caribbean Historical Society, led an internationalization trust, which started in Barbados. We sent a delegation to Barbados to speak to the Barbados government to have Barbados recognize Emancipation Day as officially August 1st as Emancipation Day. CARICOM was approached as well, and CARICOM adopted the decision to have a number of CARICOM states recognize August 1st as Emancipation Day. So since then, you have had a number of nations. In fact, that delegation reached as far as Ghana as well. And so you have through North America, very recently, I think up to, that was 2 years ago, Ottawa took the decision to officially recognize August 1st. Yeah, in Canada. Canada recognized August 1st officially as Emancipation Day. So here you have, on the one hand, the trust made to embrace, have the international community embrace August 1st as Emancipation Day, which should be the correct thing to do, because the emancipation is a global phenomenon. On the other hand, now, at this stage, you have the Prime Minister of the country which is credited to be the first to observe Emancipation Day as a holiday, seem to be making a sort of backward step and chastising the international arena, whoever that is, I don't know, right, for embracing, as he would term it, his words, is climbing on the bandwagon, you know. So this we do not understand, because we see this as a retrograde step.
Yeah, because I mean, correct me if I need that. My sense is that Emancipation Day talks about the emancipation of people who were slaves. And who were the people who were slaves?
Right. You had, the Africans in terms of chattel slavery. That is it, because, I mean to say, it is already accepted, already understood by everyone. Because, in fact, if one is making, contemplating some kind of decision, right, in a change, it should add value. One has to ask the question, this change from Emancipation Day, add in the term African emancipation, does it add value in any way? And we don't think so, because it doesn't add anything. People already accept it. Doesn't make what difference does it make? People already are aware that Emancipation Day relates and refers to the freedom of Africans from chattel slavery, and everyone relates to the day in that context. Another danger that I think exists, which was a concern that we raised, is that doing this could reinforce a misconception that exists in a lot of people's minds, in this case, particularly Africans now, where they relate to the day as a one-day affair, right? Yeah. Where now you have people who make reference to clothes as my emancipation clothes. Right, I've heard that, right? So talk about the African emancipation clothes. So as far as they're concerned, this is clothes to wear on the August 1st, Emancipation Day, and after that, you wash it, you hang it up to take it back out next year on the anniversary. And this move by the Prime Minister could reinforce that misconception in people's minds.
Yeah. Mr. Ome says one of the points he makes in his letter to the editor, which I said has been published in the 2 newspapers in the last couple of days, that this is an attempt to make up, by the government, to make up for lost ground among Africans in the country.
But that is why I say it's suspicious, right? I don't know, is the Prime Minister to say why? Because they haven't given any reason. That is the next thing, you know. The cabinet has not come out, the Prime Minister now to give some kind of reason. Yes, he made some statements, some very vague, as I quoted. Right? But in terms of letting the population, giving them kind of rationale, you don't know. So I'm saying, so it leaves it open, right, for questions as posed there by Mr. Ome, right? One has to really wonder, what is your motive?
Yeah. What is your reaction to this letter by Ms. Asha Dubé? In the headline in one of the newspapers, in the Newsday newspaper, the headline is, "There's a case for and against emancipation."
Well, I would like to hear the case for. Well, as I say, I don't know what would be the case for it, because as we stated already, one would know that Emancipation Day, yes, it relates to the freedom of African slaves from